Were we wrong? I've had this same conversation with my older sister 100 times. We had it again on the phone Friday morning. Were we wrong? Many of you know that my mom has not been well. In addition to advanced old age, her grief over my father's death, now more than a year ago, has almost completely destroyed her. We got word Friday morning that she has taken another step closer to the end. She is no longer eating or drinking. She refuses to speak. She won't leave her room. The sadness in her is palpable. But my sister and I, as two of the three oldest, have very particular memories of our mom. She was kind, very much unlike me. You would have liked my mom. She was kind and gentle, slow to speak. She had a very quick, sweet smile. She was brutal at Scrabble, tireless, generous. But now? Some of you have also walked this road with people you love, whether it is illness or age or some kind of trauma. The people we thought we knew change. And sometimes they change so much we don't even know them. And we wonder if maybe we were wrong about them all along. Years ago, I skimmed a book called Being Wrong for a graduate level course I was taking. I remember very little about the book, except the cover was really gorgeous, and an intriguing proposition. The more wrong we are, the more we insist we are right. The more wrong we are, the more we insist we are right. And you're all thinking not of yourself, but of all those other idiots you work with, right? Why do we do this? Because on some level, we worry that if we were wrong about one thing, a person, or an idea, or even a memory, might we be wrong about other things? Where would it end, this being wrong? Which leads me back to my sister's question and the fear that lies underneath it. Mom, were we wrong about her? I imagine John the Baptizer's audience faced the same dilemma. Last week, Luke introduced us to John, first by placing him in his historical context, in the 15th year of the reign of Emperor Tiberius. And then Luke reminded us that John was not John the Baptizer. That title will come later. Today, he is John, son of Zechariah. Our memories are tickled about John's miraculous birth to very old parents. And what would this John have to say, standing in the shadow of some of the most vicious rulers in the world's history? Will he challenge the authorities? Will he tell sappy stories about having old parents that he used to visit them in the nursing home for his birthday parties? No. He told them that they were wrong. Dead wrong. Don't even start with me about being descendants of Abraham. He said, if God wanted more children of Abraham, these rocks would grow legs and run around. And don't go on with me about being of David's line. That storied lineage, that branch of Jesse, that tree of Lebanon is at this moment being chopped down at the very roots. They were speechless. There is no corollary for us with regard to the offense that John caused. No crass Martin Luther joke comes even close to cutting this deep. His audience was filled with observant Jews who had come to the river to be baptized for repentance, a ritual as ancient as Abraham himself. And for centuries, their primary identity had been as children of Abraham, children of the promise of a blessing, the promise of children, the promise of land. And for centuries, they had waited for the line of King David to be restored, so that branch of Jesse to sprout again, and Israel to be restored to prominence. They had clung to Abraham and to David. It was who they were. And John, with 2 swift kicks, throws them to the ground. Children of Abraham, really, he says. The restoration of David's line? No. John assured them that they had been certainly, completely, and totally wrong. Wrong about the 2 most important things in their world. But rather than shake their fists or stamp their feet as I would have done, they bought it. They believed him. They believed this poorly dressed, foul-mouthed, disrespectful son of an octogenarian. They believed him when he told them they were wrong, and they welcomed it as good news. I honestly do not understand this reaction. I've been studying these texts for decades, and this one has always baffled me. It would be like getting your 23andMe DNA results back in the mail and discovering that your mother was a golden retriever and your father a bagpipe. What? Not possible. To destroy, that's not what mine were, by the way. To destroy their connection to Abraham, to chop down the tree that was David's lineage was, well, there is no corollary for us. But they were more than willing to be wrong. Their question was not, how dare you, but how then shall we live? In their wrongness, in this new reality, in this unsettling moment, they were ready to go forward. What then shall we do? And he invited them to be wrong again. He said to the rich, if you have 2 coats, you only need one, give one away. If you have food, give it away. Stop being rich. And to the tax collectors, whose only income was the surcharge they attached to the federal income tax they collected door to door for the king, he said, stop collecting extra money. Be poor. And to soldiers who were poorly paid, who billeted in the homes of the enemy, who would often extort money from people for protection, much like the mafia, he said, live within your means. Because all the things they had clung to, their wealth, their smarts, their authority, none of that mattered anymore. One is coming who is more powerful than I, he promised. And they were delighted to receive him, delighted to be wrong. Were we wrong? Last Sunday morning, I told you about a surprise visit I had had on Saturday afternoon from my 4-year-old Jewish neighbor and his mother. They were nearing the end of their Hanukkah celebration, and there was a knock on the door, and I looked out, and here was this tiny little boy dwarfed by a poinsettia as red as his little winter cheeks. It was a lovely, intergenerational, interfaith moment that makes me smile every time I think about it. So, imagine my delight on Thursday evening, just after I had finished the dinner dishes, when there was a knock on the door. Expecting to see the UPS truck parked in the driveway, instead I was presented with an enormous winter bouquet. Red roses and green boughs and these sparkly, springy things all over it. I thought, how is this possible? Flowers again? What are the odds? And as quickly as I reached for it, the woman presenting the bouquet peered over the top and gasped, snatching it back. These aren't for you. This is the wrong house. These aren't for you. I am so sorry. And she ran back to the car, shouting to her husband, she's the wrong woman. It's the wrong house. True. I have no idea who they were looking for, or if that right woman ever received her bouquet. But they were so wrong, so terribly wrong, and the woman was so ashamed. We can be so wrong about so many things, about people, about what we believe, about addresses. And if we discover that the person we loved is no longer the person we thought, if we discover that our faith has been misplaced, if we discover that we, like that poor woman, are tremendously lost, what then shall we do? John, storied son of Zechariah, encourages us to lean in to being wrong, to let go of any ideas we had about how the world would go, or how we would be rewarded for hard work, or how the people in our lives would treat us in the long run. To his wildly wrong audience at the river, his only advice: be generous, be honest, be content. And us, what if we are wrong? Are my sister and I wrong about our dear mother's true nature? I don't think so. Though she is not the mother we once knew, she's still my mom, though a sadder, older, more tired version. Though we may be wrong about some things, we will not always be wrong. The world will not always be wrong. The only good news buried in John's exhortation is that someone more powerful is coming. Someone who is more powerful than our wealth, more powerful than our smarts, more powerful than our power. We would be wrong to underestimate the power of this one named Jesus, who comes to lift us, to free us, to right all that is wrong.